Welcome to another exciting episode of the Business of Digital podcast, featuring your hosts, Matt Siltala and Dave Rohr. Hey, everybody. Looking forward to another exciting episode of the Business of Digital podcast. I appreciate everybody joining us. We have awesome opportunity. We're joined by Jenny Halasz again today. I said that wrong. I totally butchered it. See, I got it right the last time, Jenny. I'm sorry.
It's Halasz.
I knew I was going to do that the second it rolled off my lips, but we are
where
one.
the Bears play? They practice at Halasz Hall.
In all fairness, I told her I was going to do it. So, and we are one take podcast, so we're doing this. But it's because, time is money. Speaking of, you like that transition
Nice.
into. All right, so what we're going to be getting into today, guys, is we're going to be talking about what is your time worth. Now, I don't know about you guys, but I'm going to give you guys a little bit of a background before we really jump into this. And I'm sure that you guys have the exact same thing happen to you all the time. So there's people that will come up to me all the time and be like, hey, I just want to pick your brain for a second. And, at first you're like, okay, let's do it. And then it ends up being, an hour and a half, 2 hour long lunch meeting with this person where you've basically given them as much information as you can. And you're feeling like, well, what did I just get out of that? It's kind of like, I'm thinking the equivalent would be like calling a plumber over and having him fix your toilet and telling him, I'm going to test it out and use this and make sure it works before I'm going to pay you. Or I don't understand it sometimes. And so, the topic is what's your time really worth? And I just, when we're getting into it, I just think about that side of it and how there's so many people that are like, hey, can I just ask you a quick question? Or, hey, can I just this, and this? And think about if the tables were turned and we were asking our electrician for just a quick moment of his expertise, or the plumber, or you know what I mean, guys?
Yep.
Oh, yeah.
And so that's like one of my biggest pet peeves and frustrations. Now, it doesn't mean that I'm not more than willing or happy to teach people, talk with people, especially those that give back. But it's just, we all know those type of people that are always like, take instead of give. And so this is a topic that Dave had actually come up with for the podcast and what your time is really worth. So Dave, why don't you kick us off and get us started, and we'll go from there.
Yeah, and we are going to include an interesting kind of quiz link process that walks you through. It's on clearthinking.org. It's a little interesting kind of survey or quiz, and it just keeps asking you questions of like, how many hours a week do you work? Are you employed? And it walks you through all these number of questions so you can figure out like what your hourly value is. And I think that's probably more helpful, especially for a small business owner or even an in-house person. Jenny, and I think you've worked in-house before too.
Long time ago.
Yeah. But when I was in-house, no one ever thinks of your time as worth anything. You're just a salary. You have 40 hours a week. Go do this. But when you're running a company, or if you're an in-house person or even an agency, every minute that those people are working is worth something. So I always like to think about, can you outsource this? What is, who's the best person to do it? If someone wants me to write 100 meta descriptions, and I'm sure Jenny's going to go, oh my God, please don't make me do that. Usually I can provide research and I can provide guidance. And then I go, okay, now let's have an internal writer, or an intern write it. And then I will spend an hour or two going over it rather than me spending 8 hours. And it becomes the, trying to balance the cost versus output. Does that make sense?
Totally.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So Jenny, I'm curious what you use to track your own time, or how you track your own time for your clients, and just in general, how you kind of monitor what you're working on and make sure that you're getting the most out of your day and time.
So I actually really suck at this. I use QuickBooks to monitor my time because I do bill my clients by the hour. Okay. So everything is hourly. So I do track everything there, but there's just, as an independent, there's so many things that go into a day: marketing, accounting,
last minute podcasting,
taxes, all these kinds of things that go into a day that I really don't quantify very well.
Yep.
Yeah, and that got me thinking about, like, even the little bit of, we're all guilty of it, but we have our phones and it's 7:00 at night and the client emails us something, and it's like, how many of those little 10 minutes here or 15 minutes there add up and they weren't billed or whatever. And so there's like so many variables. I don't even know how something can be like 100% accurately tracked. I don't know. Maybe you bake that into the billing somehow. I don't know.
For me, I use, it's called Paymo. It's Paymo.com. It's Paymo app. They have, whether you're on Mac, for you, Matt, you could use it, or me on Windows machine. I have a little app, little widget thing that I can track time. They also have one, and there's some companies will actually install these, which I think is a little crazy, but you can install them, and it basically will monitor what browsers you have open, how long they're open, how long you're in email, how long you're in all these things. And if you're one of those people that can't ever use an app or switch tasks so often, it might make sense to, turn it on for a week or even a day and just see, what do you spend your time on? If you don't think you're getting enough done, maybe you are really spending more time on Facebook than you thought.
Yeah,
so that's interesting to me, because I don't really have any personal, I mean, you guys probably don't either, any real personal to business dividing line. I mean, I spend a lot of time on Facebook every day, but a lot of it is spent in forums discussing SEO stuff or working on a prospective client or prospecting for something for a client. A lot of times I'm looking to try and help a client hire somebody or figure out which tool is the best one to use. So,
well, and with what you just said too, Jenny, it makes me think a lot about it. A lot of it is networking as well, because, for example, you said you spend a lot of time in forums, and so let's say that I'm on Facebook or Instagram or whatever. It might be a conference head, or it might be someone that knows someone, or there's all sorts of scenarios that you can put here, but you take time getting to know them. You build that relationship with them. You answer their question. You help a problem. If they have a poll, you take part in it. You know what I mean? You're not just, again, what I was starting off with, one of those takers. You're not just taking. You're giving as well. Then when they see your name pop up, or, hey, when someone asks them, do you know someone that can speak on this? Or do you know someone that could write on this? Or do you know someone that would be a great guest on a podcast for this? You know what I mean?
Right.
And so there's all that stuff that I don't know how you can ever, quantify that, or how you could ever put I don't know what the word I'm looking for, but I don't know how you could ever show the value in that, other than we know that it's valuable because we're going to get the link when we're on a podcast. We're going to, be able to have potential for clients when we speak at that conference. We're going to be, I don't know. Is that making any sense what I'm saying, guys?
Yeah.
Oh, it makes total sense to me. My husband's asked me before, why do you spend so much time at these conferences when you might come home with, one lead that may or may not pan out for, the cost of flying across the country and staying in a hotel for 4 days. But the reason that I do it is because when I don't do it, I don't get the calls. So I have to stay active in the industry, because that's the way that I do my marketing, and that's where my business comes from. So even though I can't quantify, how much revenue I got from, say, going to PubCon last year, I can tell you that it definitely led to opportunities.
Yeah, exactly. I'm right there with you. Not to mention the fact that just the people that you talk to, and you may meet someone that is an expert with just name a subject. And let's say all of a sudden you're working with a client and they have a big problem with said subject. Hey, guess what? New best friend, can you help me with this? And again, it's not just you taking, obviously you give a lot to the community. So, that's already a given, but you see what I'm saying? Like there's so many opportunities like that with people. And again, to me, when you're talking about what's your time really worth, these conferences or spending time on Facebook or Instagram, wherever it might be, wherever your platform is, those kind of relationships, like in some cases, are invaluable. So
here's an example that I've used in the past, and it's why even before I started working at an agency, I liked using time trackers just for my own sake. My boss was hounding me. He's like, "Hey, Dave, how many links did you build this week?" I was like, "None." He's like, "Well, you're the SEO, right?" "Yes." "Why haven't you built any links this week?" I'm like, "Because I haven't been able to do any SEO." "Dave, let me repeat that. You're my SEO, right?" "Yes." "Why haven't you built me any links?" "Because I have no time." "How can you not have any time?"
Meetings all day long.
How do you not have any time? So I used, I think at the time, like Harvest app or FreshBooks or something. There's tons of different time tracking things out there. And literally for a week, it was either a week or two, I timed all of everything I did every day. Like, here's how many meetings I'm in. Here's what I was doing. Here's when I was meeting with customer service. Here's where I met with the CFO. Here's where I met with the CTO. Here's where you called me into my office for an hour. And as I walked through, and then I spit out all of that data, and I said, here's what I did this week, and here's what I've already done so far this week. And he was like, "What the hell? You're my SEO. And you do everything but SEO." I'm like, "Exactly." Guess who got to hire an agency to help them build links? Me. Mm-hmm. Because I was able to show and quantify exactly what I was doing and not doing. And, me telling my boss, "Hey, I need support," and him going, "Well, I don't have $2,000 a month for you to have a small agency to help you. I don't have $1,000 for you to, hire more writers." Once I started showing exactly what I was doing and what I wasn't doing, I was able to quantify that and show it to him. And it was literally, how much do we need? And we started vetting agencies the next week.
So let's transition that. And I got a question for both of you, and Jenny, you could start us off. But because at Avalanche, we've done it both ways. We've done it where we've charged per project, and we've done it where we've done hourly. And now we're more just hourly rather than just a set paid, per project type thing or type deal. But I'm just curious where you guys are at as both, independents. When someone comes to you and is like, "Hey, this is what I need," do you guys figure out your costs based on project, or are you doing it hourly, or do they buy a chunk of your time from you? Like, how does that work for you, Jenny?
So I do it all hourly. I have a set hourly rate. I pretty much charge everybody the same hourly rate. I will sometimes give a little bit of a friends and family discount, but pretty much the same for everybody, because it keeps my accounting simple. And I try to estimate the number of hours I think it'll take to do a project. Having done these types of projects for almost 20 years, I'm pretty good at estimating them at this point. So I can usually get that pretty close. And I try to work a set number of hours in a week. So even though I have all of these other things that are taking my time, I do have a target number of hours I try to bill each week. And then in terms of the client, I provide them an invoice with exact time, what I worked on, so they can see exactly where their costs are going. And that's worked really well.
That's nice, yeah.
So some clients, will say, "We want this budget," and so I'll just back out the number of hours that is and make sure I don't go over or under if that's where we are on that. And then others will just say, just work on it for 20 hours and send me an invoice. But I also have that luxury because I'm independent. If I was running an agency, I would need to have, I think, a little bit more insight into where those hours were coming from and where they were going to, and make sure that I had enough hours, to make enough money each month to meet payroll. I was in that situation at one time where I did have employees and I was trying to meet payroll, and that's a lot harder.
Yeah, definitely. Just curious, and I appreciate you sharing that. Dave?
I do hourly, retainer, and project. I go, or buckets of hours. I kind of go depending on the project and the budget and the goals. It really just depends on what's going to make sense, and either support them or quickly kind of move the needle. I mean, some people come in and it's like, we got to do this right now. We want all this stuff. And, we just do it all in a month or two. And then other times we have a very limited budget each month, but we can do stuff over 4 or 6 months. And then we just kind of figure out how to stretch stuff out and into bite-sized chunks, whether it's one deliverable a month, and we just do a small little project each month and just kind of space it out just so that we keep moving forward. I kind of work. And then there's other people I work with where it's just a bucket of hours. And I tend to do that quite often, especially after the initial 3 to 6 months of working with someone. I'll move into a very, kind of what Jenny was just talking about. It's like, okay, we're going to have a quick call. You're working on this project. Okay, it's going to take me an hour or two to kind of dig into this. And then I'll give you my feedback. And I'm actually doing that right now with something where I'm starting to learn their business, and we're just doing I'm kind of babysitting this project to make sure that from an SEO standpoint, everything is being done properly.
Yeah. And you make a good point too with the different projects and the style of billing. And we try to do what Jenny does just with straight hourly. But one of the things that we've also done on top of that that's kind of made it nicer is, just like your cell phone plan, we have rollover out. No, we do rollover hours. And so, let's say that the clients have bought 20 hours from us, and 1 month they only used, 15 of the 20, then that'll get tacked onto all their projects and things that we'll do for the following. And we have a really good system in tracking all that, but it just makes me curious how you guys go about it, because one of the things that Jenny mentioned earlier that I think we should, touch on a little bit more, is just, is there any kind of separation of when you're working, when you're on the clock, and when you're not. And I find that, I have partners that are really good at, hey, I can't get a hold of them after 5 o'clock. And then myself, I'm pretty much open, and I'm checking emails, and I can get, people can get a hold of me at any time, and I'm checking stuff, and I'm looking stuff, and I'm answering emails. But I get that we have different roles too. I'm kind of more the face of Avalanche, and, I get that, but where do you guys, how do you separate that time, or do you do a good job of it? Or, what advice would you have for people that are trying to figure that out?
So I actually think I do a really good job of it. And a lot of it comes from just having younger children, which I know Dave does too. So, that makes a big difference. But I really pretty strictly stick to, I don't work 40 hours a week, so I pretty strictly stick to about a 9 to 4 schedule. Okay. If I have something that needs to be done earlier or later, I will. But my kids are young, and I want to spend time with them while they're young, and I'm able financially to do that and make that work. So I do.
I love that you say that, Jenny, because that's what I tell people all the time. I could have gone and taken other opportunities even, or I could even put more into what I do, but I prefer to have that time with my family, and I prefer to have a lot of that time with my kids. And so I guess that's what it comes back to, which is the whole point of this podcast, what your time is really worth. Is your time, are you looking for that family time? Or are you looking for just more work time or more money? And so that's really what it comes down to. And it's an individual thing.
It is. Yeah. You got to make that decision for yourself. And for me, my husband and I both own our own businesses, so it's 24/7. I mean, we always have something going on, right? And the kids understand that. But at the same time, I really do try not to be actively working past certain hours, and I try to unplug a little bit when we're on vacation. Really only check my email once or twice a day instead of 700 times a day.
Guilty.
But again, I don't have really any separation between work and personal.
Gotcha.
I'm just as likely to be chatting with Christine Schackinger about some SEO thing at 11 p.m. just because it's something that is interesting and we're trying to figure it out,
So speaking of your time, if any of our listeners are wanting any of your time, where can our listeners find you, Jenny?
My company is JLH Marketing. It's JLH-marketing.com. And I'm really most active on Twitter at Jenny Halasz, and that's Halasz. But really just Google me. I'm pretty easy to find. And
we will give you links to all her stuffs on the online, all the interwebs on the podcast episode. And so, any final thoughts, Dave, before we wrap up?
If you're a small business owner, if you're an in-house person, if you're an agency person that works and do not track your time, I honestly suggest taking a look at a week or two and just tracking what you do. You will find that you were probably spending time on stuff you didn't realize. And take a look at some of our previous podcasts about hiring interns or, going to your local college and finding someone maybe in business school or developers or photographers, and, take that little quiz and walk through and figure out what your time is quote unquote worth. But then also think about your family and running your business. And you might take a small hit in some ways to hire someone to do some of that stuff. But I think you'll find that you actually have more time to do what matters to you, or that matters more to your customers or your prospects, and try to balance that out.
Perfect. So one final thing here, and we'll get you going. So I know everybody has to head off pretty soon, but you're going to laugh at this because my daughter, she made us take her phone in to Apple because she thought she had one of those bad batteries, that they were going to replace for $29 after that whole thing. Well, it turns out the lady's going through it with her, finds out that her battery's dying because she spends too much time on Snapchat. She was so embarrassed. So she just looks down and is like, I don't want to hear it, Dad. And I'm like, there you go, sweetie. And so to what you said, Dave, figure out, do a little audit on where you're spending your time and then focus on that. So, well, for Jenny and Dave, I'm Matt, and thank you guys for joining us on this episode. And again, special thanks, Jenny. I appreciate you guys you being here for us. So
thanks. It was a pleasure.
All right, guys. We'll see you on the next one. Bye-bye.
Bye.